Our type 1 leadership style as is known as the administrator, and our type 9 leadership style is known as the consensus builder. Now, whether these are leaders or teammates, today we are going to look at the coworker compatibility of these two, looking at the common ground, the things that they both share, the strengths that they each bring to this team dynamic, this coworker dynamic, where their potential friction points might be, and some things to think about for how these two can work better together. I am your host, Sarah Wallace, Managing Director and Founder here at Enneagram MBA. And when you're ready, I'll see you on the other side. Our type 1 is known as the administrator because they have very high standards. They tend to be very structured, very detail oriented, very focused on principles, processes, procedure. What's the right thing to do? How can we make this better? If they had a book, it would be the good to great book. They see things as that's good, but it could be even better. Our type 9 is known as the consensus builder because they are so good at making everybody feel included, asking for advice, asking for what other people think. They tend to be very easygoing, also very diplomatic, and really want to avoid conflict at all costs. And a little unlike the 1, they can be a little bit more adaptable. So let's jump in and see where these two overlap, some common ground that they have. So they both have a desire for a harmonious and ethical work environment. They both are going to be focused on that. Ones are going to want things to be done the right way, where 9s are going to be more focused on keeping the peace and cooperating. Is everybody getting along? Now, they're both going to focus on fairness and integrity, but the 1s typically, and again, we're going to be careful here because this isn't all the time, every day, forever and always, but most of the time, the tendency of the 1 is to achieve that fairness and integrity by enforcing rules and structure. Whereas the 9 is going to promote that fairness by inclusivity and building a consensus. What does everybody else think? So same goal, a little bit different for how to get there. And then they both have a strong work ethic, and they can both be incredibly dependable. They both tend to be steady, very responsible team players. They both can be very politically correct. Diplomatic is a quality in both of them, and their colleagues can trust them to follow through on their commitments. Now, strengths to a partnership. So if they've teamed up on a particular project or they're on the same team, where they shine as a partnership is they're both going to bring some balance or a good balance of structure and flexibility. So our type 1 is going to provide that clarity, that structure, those high standards, whereas our 9 is going to balance it out with a little more patience, being a little bit more adaptable, and just kind of bring this calming presence to maybe the intensity that a 1 might have. So you need both. They're balancing each other out. They also are going to bring some balance and strengths in this partnership when it comes to effective problem solving. Our 1s are going to bring logic and rationale and principled decision making to their process, whereas a 9 is going to take a more they're going to zoom out and look and gather multiple perspectives, and their solutions are going to be pretty diplomatic because they're they're gathering opinions, thoughts, making sure everybody else feels heard and feels seen in that decision making process. When it comes to complementing each other's leadership styles, that type 1 is going to bring precision and high expectations. They have high expectations for others. They have high expectations for themselves. So they may struggle with that inner critic because it can always be better. And there is a lot of good to that energy. And then when it gets overused, of course, there can be some struggles there. But the type 9 is going to bring a more collaborative, calming influence to their leadership style. And then the last piece here for the synergy, the things that they bring to their partnership at work is this supportive dynamic. So a 1 is going to motivate a 9 into action, into motion. 1s tend to jump out there. 3, 7s, 8s are known as the assertive type. 1s also get put in there because of that. Hey, let's just get to work. So they can inspire that in the 9s. And then a 9 might help the 1s relax a little bit. Maybe take a step back, pull out of those weeds and those details and see the bigger picture. So they bring a lot of complementary strengths to one another to really make a strong partnership. Now, with everybody, there's going to be some potential friction points between these two, where when it comes to work pace, could be a potential friction point. Our 1, we just talked about how they kind of want to jump into action. They're going to have a more urgency, a more focus to their action, to their pacing. They're going to want things done efficiently, and they're going to want them done excellently. Whereas a 9, going to take their time. They might be a little slower to process the information, a little slower to process the instructions, what needs to be done. So rather than jumping into action right after the meeting or right after, that day, they might take a couple hours. They might take a day to decide to process and make their decisions before moving ahead. They're going to move at a more steady, relaxed pace. So if, this is one of those things needs to be done an hour from now, that might be a struggle for a 9. They tend to want to move at this very sustainable, steady pace. When it comes to handling conflict, there might be some friction. Our 1s tend to address conflict head on. They might be critical. They're going to be much more comfortable sharing their opinion, sharing when they disagree, sharing when they believe something is being done wrong and what they believe should be done, how it should be done right. Whereas our 9 is going to shy away from that conflict. Maybe avoid those more challenging conversations. They could shut down completely or just kind of redirect the conversation so that they don't have to deal with it. And again, maybe it's the time and the place for that, but at other times that can cause friction because there may be something that needs uncomfortable that needs to be addressed so that our 9s can get back to that peaceful place. When it comes to decision-making styles, our type 1 is going to be much more firm. It's going to be very clear and it's going to be very logical. They're going to, and you're going to, it's going to be part of a process. It's going to make sense. Whereas our 9s, they may slow down, take the time to get everybody's input and ask everybody what they think and make sure everybody feels heard, which again can be a wonderful quality, but at times we need to move forward and just make a decision. And sometimes soliciting other people's advice or ideas or opinions can cause even more indecision in the type 9. So they might feel frustrated with each other because 1 feels like the 9's slowing them down and 9's feels like we always do what you want to do. Let's ask the team what they think that we should do. And then the last one is around their stress response. In times of stress, our 1s are going to become very rigid, even more perfectionistic, and even more critical. You just can't do anything right, it feels like, with the 1 whenever they're in that hyper stress place. And then our 9 under stress, they're going to withdraw. They're going to pull back. They might become passive aggressive and they may avoid decision making altogether, which again, is going to cause some friction there. Now, a couple of ways that they can work better together for the type 1 specifically, they can extend some understanding and some empathy to that type 9 teammate and be a little bit more patient. Give the 9, when you can, that time to process the information and respond. As much as you can, give them that space. Offer encouragement, point out all the things that they are doing right rather than that constant criticism so that they stay engaged, so that they feel like, hey, it still matters what I do. I'm not, I didn't completely screw this up. And then the last thing that a 1 can keep in mind is to recognize that peacekeeping effort, maybe that slower pace, maybe that pause to process information doesn't mean that the 9 isn't putting in the effort. They're absolutely working and they want to put the effort. They want to be a part of the team. It's just that effort might look very different than the effort and what it looks like for a type 1. And so 1 has an opportunity to grow by remembering that. Now, on the other side, our type 9, the things that they can do to strengthen their coworker relationship with a type 1 is to speak up, share your opinion. Don't expect that type 1 to be our mind reader. Remember, your ideas and opinions matter. You're out there asking everybody else what they think and how they feel and how they're doing. Remember to do the same for you because the 1 wants to hear it. Be proactive about decisions instead of constantly deferring to your 1 teammate who may always have an answer or always know what to do. Speak up. Use your decision making, make a decision, right or wrong, you're going to learn from it, which can be scary in the time, but that's how that muscle gets built up. The only way to get better at decision making is to make decisions. And then lastly, you can practice gently pushing back when necessary on the 1. They may think, hey, I know exactly what to do. A 9 has strong opinions. Sometimes they get a reputation for not having strong opinions. They tend just to think, is this worth my time to speak up and share this opinion? If not, I'll just nod my head and agree and go along. But 9s a lot of times do have strong opinions. Sometimes they don't, but many times they do. And so, practice speaking up in a gentle way, push back on that 1, ask those questions, maybe come from a place of curiosity and not telling them that they're wrong. What made you decide that? How did you get to this decision? How did you get to this answer? Can be some great gentle pushback tactics. And then for both of you, establish those clear expectations and timelines that you have of one another to prevent that frustration down the road. So talk about how much time you're going to need, what that expectation is of each other, and then check in regularly, whether you're working on a project specifically, maybe at the beginning, check in, at the end, look back, but have some check-in points along the way. Maybe if you work closely together on a regular basis, maybe it's a weekly check-in, a monthly check-in, and so that you're able to address frustrations before they build up. And then lastly, make sure that you're on the lookout for each other's strengths. When you see them in action, let the other people know. Appreciate the gifts, the strengths, the natural talents that you each have, whether they're Enneagram specific or not. Call them out. Make sure you're pointing them out. Make sure you yourself are looking for those things as well, not just all the things that might annoy you about that person. So as a reminder, we have our type 1 striving to feel perfect. Our type 9 teammate is striving to feel at peace. We talked about the strengths. We talked about the strengths of that partnership. We talked about the things that they have in common. And then we talked about where there might be some potential friction points. I'd be curious if you happen to work with a type 1 or a type 9 and you would add anything to this conversation, or maybe you are one of these types and have some insider insight to provide us as well. I would love to hear from you. Please share those in the comments. If you happen to be looking to bring the Enneagram and some of this insight on different perspective, understanding our teammates, being a leader that has more empathy and understanding for those that we lead. Here at Enneagram MBA, all we do are workshops and team building programs. And so I'm going to invite you to check out the options that we have over Enneagram MBA to see if there's something over there that might make sense for your team. And with that, I look forward to seeing you again in another coworker compatibility matchup.